If you could describe Dr. Jose Rizal in one word, what would that word be?
If I could express Dr. Jose Rizal in one word, it would be hero.
I would say a martyr.
Hero.
Imagine being prepared for your execution by a firing squad on a hot winter day. Are you perfectly calm or are you in a nervous wreck? Why would the Spanish government execute a man for writing a book? Why would someone be so calm after they already died? What is the use of independence if the slaves of today will be tyrants of tomorrow? Dr. Jose Rizal's efforts to promote equal rights through his novels and execution for the Filipinos under Spanish rule inspired the colony to revolt and ultimately gain independence. Rizal promoted equality, not through independence, but through reform of government for all people of the colony, the Spanish, Chinese, and the Filipino. Let's go back in time, way back when the Philippines was first discovered by Ferdinand Magellan in search of spices and a shorter route to Asia. While in the Philippines, Magellan baptized many natives into the Catholic faith. Therefore, the seeds of the Catholic Church were placed on the islands. Friars, high Catholic priests, started to abuse power during the 1800s, controlling education and owning large acres of land in the Philippines. Friars were supported by the Spanish government. The first permanent Spanish settlement in the Philippines was established in Cebu in 1565. A leader who was born 3 centuries after the colony was established, Jose Rizal, who was an intelligent writer, eye doctor, artist, poet, novelist, and peacemaker. Rizal's powerful words written on paper to influence equal rights for all Filipinos under Spanish rule convinced many Filipinos to revolt against Spain. Dr. Jose Rizal changed history from the publishing of his first novel, No Me Tangere, in 1886, to his execution in 1896, 10 years after the publishing of his revolutionary novel. Rizal's vision, his dream for the Philippines, was to have equal rights for the Spanish, the Filipino, and the Chinese. The Governor-General, who was appointed by the monarch, had the most power in the colony. The Philippines had no voice in the Spanish Parliament, Cortes, even though they were part of Spain. Rizal disagreed with the Spanish system and called for reform. Jose Rizal was born in Colombo, Laguna on June 19, 1861, the same city or province which many of my relatives currently live.
For me, the most important event in his life is when he created his novels that has changed the lives of the Filipino people.
What is your opinion on his book, No Me Tangere, known as Touch Me Not or The Social Cancer?
It is a very good book that has given the Filipino people a new hope to root for during the times when they were struggling under the Spanish regime.
Rizal went to the best schools in the Philippines. Rizal's family was rich and prominent. Why would Rizal care so much about getting equal rights when he had it all? He could afford to study in Europe. He didn't live in paradise. The reason why he wanted such justice and equality for his people was because Rizal had experienced injustice in his own family when his mother was imprisoned. From Jose Rizal's point of view, he wrote, "The injustice done to my mother." Only a few days later, that ungrateful woman accused her husband of poisoning her and charged that my mother was incompetent. On this charge, the alcalde sent my mother to prison. I do not like to tell the deep grief which we all 9 sisters and brothers felt. Our mother's arrest, we knew, was unjust. He was unfair in every way and treated my mother rudely, even brutally. When Rizal was 21, he studied in Manila and Madrid, Spain, for a medical degree. 4 years later, he published his first novel, No Me Tangere, in Germany. The Noli, as it is called in the Philippines, was a romantic story with a political background. The hidden meaning in the novel showed how cruelly Filipinos were treated by Spain. For example, in chapter 17 in the novel, Rizal wrote about 2 poor brothers who worked in a church. One of them unjustly accused of stealing and was beaten by a priest. Rizal formed an organization in Manila called La Lingua Filipina, the Philippine League, that wanted peace and reform in the Spanish government. In its constitution, it states in the beginning, mutual protection in every want and necessity, defense against all violence and injustice, study, application of reforms. Their motto was, one like all. Due to his leadership speaking out his voice against the Spanish government, Rizal was exiled on July 6, 1892, to the Pitan, an island in Mindanao.
Rizal's sister, Maria Rizal, is my great-grandmother. At the school, he opened when he was exiled in Dapitan. There's an island here in the Philippines. This was one, because after he wrote the books, he incited, rebelliousness in the Filipinos. So he was put on this island. The Spaniards thought that he could, be quiet there, but he started a school. His school was very progressive.
He taught others and practiced medicine during those 4 years in exile. At the time of his exile, another organization formed, the Katipunan. This split from the Philippine League. The Katipunan is a revolutionary group formed on June 7, 1892, that supported violence against Spain to gain independence, unlike the Philippine League. Rizal was arrested on August 23, 1896, after the Katipunan was discovered. On November 3, 1896, 1 week after the Spanish government discovered the Katipunan, Rizal was imprisoned at Fort Santiago. The Spanish accused him of being connected to Katipunan, since the organization kept Rizal as their freedom icon, chanting his name. A month after his imprisonment, Rizal went to his trial on December 3, 1896. Rizal was charged with sedition and treason. Rizal's verdict was guilty, and the judge punished him by execution. Jose Rizal was executed on December 30, 1896. On the night of December 29, 1896, Rizal wrote a poem called Mi Ultimo Adios. Here is a part of it. Give thanks that I rest from a warnsome day. Farewell to thee too, sweet friend that lighten my way. Beloved creatures, all farewell. In death there is rest. This was the last piece of writing Dr. Jose Rizal wrote.
I could describe Jose Rizal in one word. I would say martyr. The unfairness of the Spanish people to the Filipinos was his priority in life. The greatest influence that Jose Rizal made to Filipinos, I would say, would be his patriotism, his heroism for giving his life, and being a martyr for giving his life for the people. He was killed by the Spaniards because he just kept on contradicting them and telling them what they were doing to the Filipinos was wrong. So that is his biggest influence. He's basically started the freedom of the Philippines.
Dr. Jose Rizal is significant today because of his efforts to motivate equal rights for Filipinos under Spanish colonization. Jose Rizal was an intelligent writer and peacemaker who just wanted to bring justice and equality to his people. He was willing to suffer and die for the Filipino people. Rizal's powerful words, written on paper, convinced many Filipinos to become one to revolt against Spain. 2 years after his execution, the Philippines became independent. Rizal's words are stronger than any weapon that fired against Spain. Jose Rizal's books that have influenced the Philippine history is still being read to this day. There is a law from the Philippine government, Republic Act No. 1425, that requires all schools to learn about Rizal's writings. According to the act, an act to include curricula of all public and private schools, colleges and university courses on the life works and writings of Jose Rizal, particularly his novels No Mi Tangre and El Filibustrismo, authorizing the printing and distribution thereof the other purposes, whereas today, more than other period of our history, there is need of rededication to the ideals and freedom and nationalism for which our heroes lived and died. This law is to make sure Dr. Jose Rizal's legacy always stays in the Philippines. As Dr. Jose Rizal said, the youth is the hope of our future.
Alala ng kanyang ina na huwag siyang lalapit sa apoy. Ay lapit pa rin siya ng lapit. Palapit ng palapit sa apoy. Hanggang sa magliyab ang pakpak niya.